Marshall Mathers IV here. I really wish that Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and the Star Wars prequel trilogy, which came out and was released on May 19 in the year 2005, being released exactly 3 years after Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, because Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones was released on May 16 in the year 2002, and Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, being released on May 19 in the year 2005, was, of course, 3 years after Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones was released. I wish would have been released on May 19, 2003, and I am so fucking pissed that Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, did not come out on May 16 in the year 2001, which would have only been 2 years after Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And then, if Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones would have came out and been released on May 16 in the year 2001, then obviously, or at least, there would have been more of a chance of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, coming out and being released on May 19 in the year 2003, which it most definitely should have. And another thing, of course, is the fact that the events of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, should have been, or taken place, 5 years after the events of Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. So in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, both Anakin and Padme would have been 16 years old. They're characters in that film. And then in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Anakin and Padme would have both been 22 years old, with the events of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, taking place exactly 5 years after the events of Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. And I also really would have loved if Darth Maul would have been in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, as well as in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. And I would have loved if maybe Jango Fett would have died in Revenge of the Sith instead of Attack of the Clones. But I at least wish, if he was supposed to, and if he had to, die in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, that he would have had more screen time and definitely more lines, being a pretty dope, badass villain that he was. And, of course, have both Count Dooku and General Grievous die the same way they did, and the movie pretty much being the same for the most part, but I definitely think that the film still could have used a better story, a much better script, and more action scenes and sequences and whatnot, instead of so many boring, annoying scenes of sitting down and talking and shit, which nobody cares about or is excited or intrigued about watching and seeing. That shit is ridiculous, and it makes no sense whatsoever why in any of the Star Wars prequel trilogy films that George Lucas would make so many of the fucking scenes and so much of all three of the movies just sitting down and talking about dumb shit that we don't know about or care about as the audience. And of course, Darth Maul would not die in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, but I mean, it would still be awesome for him to have conflict between Obi-Wan Kenobi and maybe Anakin, and maybe kill some Jedis here and there and whatnot, and probably, if anything, be the main and hardest villain to take down and defeat in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, because he wouldn't be defeated or taken down. He would have escaped, again, but of course be killed in maybe one of the Star Wars shows, such as Star Wars Rebels or something like that. And that's pretty much all I wish about Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. But it sucks balls that we as the audience, as the fans, didn't get something better such as that. Such as what I just talked about in this video. And it's all because George Lucas had too much access and too much freedom to write the script and make the script, instead of asking or hiring other people who are way better or much better writers than him to make a much more interesting, exciting, intriguing story for all 3 films in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. And then just have him mainly focus on directing the film and maybe the special effects as well. And I mean, even with the Blu-ray releases of the prequel Star Wars trilogy, it would have been awesome if George Lucas would have and could have updated and upgraded the special effects all around of all 3 movies, but especially of the original Star Wars trilogy. But he didn't. Instead, with the original Star Wars trilogy on the Blu-ray releases, he added so much dumb fucking bullshit that was totally and completely unnecessary, instead of actually trying to make the old Star Wars films actually look more new and recent by really caring about updating and upgrading the special effects, as well as the special effects of the Star Wars prequel trilogy. Would have been cool, but sadly he didn't care enough to do just that. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say to end this video.